Okay, can you see the screen? The share screen?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to hit play and let's enjoy together.
Rabbi Teller, Shalom Aleichem and welcome.
Shalom, y'all.
It's wonderful to see you. I think the last time you were in Atlanta was about, it feels like about 6 years ago. Was it longer?
That long? Yeah. Okay.
I can measure it by the age of my Shabbos talis because I'm wearing the talis that you gave me as a gift when you noticed when you were here that my Shabbos talis had been, shall we say, misplaced or taken by somebody unintentionally. So thank you. I think of you every Shabbos at least once a week.
Thank you very much. I'm glad Shabbos by you is only once a week.
Yeah. So Ionis, before we get started on the topic of the day, which is very appropriate for the month of Adar, I just want to ask you about this new podcast that you're doing. Please tell us about it.
Okay, so the operative word is new. It's really fresh meat. It's exactly 1 week old today. This goes back to at the beginning of the pandemic. And you know, we're blessed with a large family, and many of them live around us. Some a little further. Some are even in America. One is in South Africa. And the kids asked me if I would give them a talk once a week. And I didn't want to do one of these Zoom sessions, which are fine and they're lovely. Family do it, but I don't need to see every grandchild's new tooth and everything. So I decided I wanted to educate a little something more significantly. And I was a little distressed that my own children, born and raised in Israel, were ignorant about the early struggle how to build a state. This wonderful country we have, people sacrificed for it. They weren't familiar. So I started teaching them the history of Israel, and they were enthralled and riveted. And the story is really, really, it's sort of combined, as it were, my two strengths, history and storytelling. And now it's so interesting. They say, now I know what the street is named after or who this person is. They were living this, they had no connection. And everything is coming together now. And it's also interesting that they don't have to always feel like such an ignoramus among, you know, you meet an Israeli or you meet an American Jew who knows more about Zionism, someone who lived here. So that's how it started. I saw how good it was. So we made this podcast. It's once a week. It's 20 minutes. So it's pretty painless about the history of Israel, the early struggle to build Israel. And every fourth week is about what I call honorable mention. It's about character workshop. So
fascinating.
Again,
So
okay.
how does a person get that podcast? What do we do? What actions do we take to get that podcast? Do we
Okay, it doesn't require college education. All it requires is going. It's called Teller from Jerusalem. On every single platform, you can search for Teller from Jerusalem or www.tellerfromjerusalem.com, and that will get you there as well.
Excellent. Okay, great. All right, look forward. So the first episode, has that been released yet?
First one is up and the second one is dropping today.
Got it. Okay. And you don't need the first in order to appreciate the second.
Not at all. Not at all. But you can always pull up the first one. And it's the story of our people. I hope your people, I really feel when I wrote you that I believe that this is a perfect shidduch. It's a perfect match for people of Beth Jacob.
Well, it certainly, first of all, anything that you do, people here consume really with a great appetite. So we're interested, but that particularly that's certainly a niche that is not really being addressed inside of the Orthodox community with any kind of thoroughness. So this is great. This is very, very interesting.
Oh, yeah, and I'm getting a little carried away. I can't keep up at this pace, but I see so far, I've recorded many episodes. On average, I'm seeing it's 16 hours of preparation for 20 minutes. So I'm getting a lot of interesting information.
Wow.
But I hope it little streamlines.
I got it. All right, so the topic at hand today, it probably actually was more than 16 hours of preparation. I would imagine it took you an entire lifetime to prepare to talk about Simcha. Misha Nichnas Adar and Marvin B'Simcha. So we are now in Rosh Chodesh Adar. Great topic, joy. Where do we go with this? What aspect of Simcha are we going to discuss?
Okay, so first of all, Misha, now you probably know this. I teach in many seminaries. I've had many, even this year, I have great girls from Atlanta. Great. Tamar Stein this year, and it's escaping me the name of it. Anyways, wonderful girls. And we had Ariella Wolf last year.
Yeah.
And what is two girls? They're Michal and Yael. I can't think of their last name with an M. I think Panamanian.
And Yael, and they sound like very familiar names. I'm not pulling up right now, but
It doesn't matter. They're wonderful girls. So
my wife will kill me. She'll say, "Of course, it was so and so."
Let's make a long story long. Every girl's favorite mitzvah, I know from seminary, the favorite mitzvah is Misha Nechnas Adar Marvin Misimcha. When Adar comes, we increase in joy, and every single seminary girl puts a sign on her door, Misha Nechnas our door, Marvin Misimcha. Very original, door after door after door after door. So I don't know if this gesticulation will help, but picture a bar. And here, now what is the opposite of Misha Nechnas? Again, when Adar comes in, when the month of Adar commences, we increase in joy. So what's the opposite of this? And the answer is, when Av comes, we decrease in joy. So the Kotzker Rebbe said a very profound, very Jewish insight. Again, I'm just using this as a prop. If here is Adar, we'll make a smiley, and here is Av, we'll make a frowny. What would you imagine is the point of departure, the baseline? That would be bar.
Yeah, bar,
right?
neutral.
So the Kotzker, no. The opposite, antithetical, antipodal to 180 degrees to Mar.
Let's get started. Drive safe. In 0.1 miles, turn right.
Sorry, bear with me, everybody. I'm trying to get it back on.
Oh, okay. I was just going to let you know. Okay.
One minute. I'm going to try one more time. I'll put my face on so you can watch me click around as entertainment while I get this back. I'm sorry. Not sure what happened. Just 1 minute. Okay, it's coming back.
Marbin b'simcha, increasing in joining, and joy should be increasing in mourning with a U. So the Kotzker, no, the baseline is simcha. A Jew has to know how to modulate a little more or a little less, but we're never sans simcha. We're never bereft of simcha. The baseline is always joy. That's a Jewish perspective. Okay, so how do we achieve it? That's as someone once said, happiness is a serious problem. So the fact of the matter is there is a delicious inverse relationship between expectations and gratitude. And I'll make the case that gratitude is the most important component for achieving happiness. And the way this relationship works is the more you expect, the less grateful you'll be, and the less you expect, the more grateful you'll be, which is why expectations are not a good idea. If you always expect to be well and you wake up with a headache, you're all bent out of shape. Goals are a very good idea. Goals are critical. You have to shoot for the stars, but not expect. In other words, if your son or kid brother wants to be in the NFL, that's a good goal. I think it's highly unlikely he'll achieve it, but the goal is good. It's going to get him there, but he shouldn't expect it.
So let me interrupt you for a minute, because when I hear that, I hear a very cynical voice. I've heard people say this, Rabbi, you can't count on people. I expect nothing from them. People are not really there for you. They're fair weather friends, et cetera, et cetera. I live my life without expecting anything from people. When I hear that, I hear misery, I hear unhappiness, I hear expecting nothing. I don't hear no expectations. I hear expecting disappointment. You're not talking about that, obviously, but help with that distinction, please.
No, again, a goal is, all I'm saying is that if you expect everything to go well, if you're driving to an important appointment and you have a flat tire, because you never have a flat tire on the way to an unimportant appointment, you start cursing and cussing. But if you don't expect, then you can roll with the punches better. The confusion I usually have with my students is with goals. In other words, and I would give an example between goal and expectation. I always do this. I offer an example when I don't have one. Oh, yes, I do, actually. I was nominated for a prize here in Israel, and it's been narrowed down to someone else. Out of 247 candidates, it's been narrowed down to someone else and myself. My goal is this prize, but it is not my expectation, not to mention the fact the judge is the uncle of the other candidate. So I'm just saying, I'm not talking about other people not expecting them. I'm talking about from ourselves. We shouldn't always expect things to go well, because that sets us up for disappointment.
Got it.
What I'd like to get to is work on that gratitude, because that's the important thing. I believe that's the most important component, ingredient to achieving happiness. And I want to introduce this, if I may, with a story which I know to be true, because I heard it from the protagonist herself. It's actually a story which I wrote, which means I'm engaging in self-plagiarism, as Rami Soloveitchik used to call it. I heard him say, I know, I'm engaging in self-plagiarism. So the story goes like this. According to New York state law, the homebound are entitled to an education. And there's a girl who was born lo aleinu with a rare congenital defect, which has robbed her of her brain. And the girl is 9 years old, lies in a crib, festooned with toys she'll never appreciate, for she cannot tell the difference between heat and cold and light and dark. And this woman who told me the story, who's a specialist in special ed, goes to her 3 times a week to attempt to teach her motor control. And she explained to me, if the girl would ever raise the smallest pinky, it'd be a major miracle. And one day she was tending to this girl. She had never met the father before. This is in a wealthy, affluent, religious neighborhood in Brooklyn. Father was there. She'd never met him before, wearing a real fancy Delancey suit and a schnipsel and a tie. And he went over to the crib and scooped up the child. And children are soft, pliable, cuddly. This girl was stiff and rigid. He scooped her up and he said, without any irony at all, what do you say about our Eitzer? What do you say about our treasure? After 14 miscarriages, look what God blessed us with. And you hear a story like this, and your kid brother comes into the room and starts coloring on the wallpaper. You want to hug him and not break him. And so having said that, I just want to segue, if I may. It's not a big segue. I think we have the obvious edge. Those of you who are involved, certainly with Rebs and Feldman's school, or any, the Torah Day School, the Ask, whatever it is in Atlanta, you're involved with the shul, we have the obvious edge over the world at large, because we're taught from time we're children to make a bracha. And what's a blessing all about? Appreciation, provided, of course, that you mean it. On average, we make 100 blessings a day. Now, that's a Herculean task to pretend, to pay attention 100 times. But even I can do it 9, 10, 11 times a day, and it's like ripping muscle. The more you pay attention and are grateful, the more appreciative you become and the happier you become. I was flying. Yeah, Rabbi Feldman, you can interrupt me anytime. Otherwise, it's like I'm the Energizer Bunny. I keep on going.
I want to keep myself out of this as much as possible.
So, okay. I can't even say this time it's an impossible act to follow, because I started. So I was flying from Israel to America. This is many years ago. And on my flight were 2 of the Gedolim of the Mir Yeshiva, Rav Aaron Chodesh, the Mashgiach, who just passed away a little bit over 45 days ago, and his brother-in-law, Rabbi Aryeh Finkel. Now, Rabbi Aryeh Finkel was one of the most pious men I've ever met in my life. You put your fingers over here, they would be dripping with God's holy presence. He walked straight out of Pirkei Avot. And these 2 great Gedolim, these mega giants, luminaries, were on the flight. We were on the same flight. And when they learned that I was on their flight, they asked if I would sit next to them. I'm a seasoned traveler. Fortunately, they are not. But my policy is, whenever I travel, I prefer to sit next to someone who is not yet religious. So I said it'll be juxtaposed in propinquity, but not totally adjacent. So Zvarin Chodosh at the window. Next to him, Rabbi Finkel, the great tzaddik, the very saintly man. Next to him, Israeli. I sat behind him, and next to me was a middle-aged Israeli couple. I introduced myself to my neighbor, and he tells me he's Haredi Chiloni, meaning not only is he not yet religious, he is zealously not yet religious. His wife explains that Dor Shminit Yerushalmit, an 8th-generation Jerusalemite, whose grandmother grew up in Batangar Me'asharim. She was Chozeret B'She'elah.
Yeah, go ahead, Rabbi. Can you slow down there?
Sure. He said, he told me his wife is a Dor Shminit, an 8th-generation Jerusalemite. And they were proud of it. They were Chozer B'She'elah. I had never heard that expression before. That is the antithesis. Chozer B'Shuvah. They kicked the fold, and they're very proud of it. Needless to say, I had my work cut out for me. So I go into my spiel, gunished, like water off a duck's back, no impression whatsoever. It was a night flight. We fall into a fitful sleep. 4 hours later, dawn is cracking. Rabbi Ari Finkel, this very saintly man, jumps up. Here is the very first opportunity, he said, Brachot HaShachar, the morning blessings. He jumps up, puts on the rekel, puts on the jacket, puts on the hat, goes into the wind-up, and by no means in a quiet voice, he begins, Baruch, Atah. Couple next to me are freaking out. They said to me, he's one of yours. You get him to quiet down. I was not prepared to cooperate. They called over the steward, and the steward said, get him off the plane. I tried to explain this. They said, call the captain. After 2 or 3 minutes, Rabbi Finkel sits down, couple resume breathing. And then Rabbi gets up again and goes back to the bathroom, comes back and once again, puts on the jacket, puts on the hat, back into the wind-up with all the histrionics and gesticulations. Baruch, Atah. And my neighbor says, now what's he doing? I said, sir, I don't know how to explain this to you, but there's a blessing you make when you come out of the bathroom. He said, give me a break. I said, no. All you have to do is go to the hospital. If someone's inlets aren't illating and their owls aren't owlings or rupture blockage, they're miserable, horrific, heinous pain. All of a sudden, the economy changed. He turned to me and said, but you know what? Yes, B'Zamash, you've got a point. The next 6 hours of talking religion all the way to America. He then came to him and speak. We're both traveling to Los Angeles. And I always say it's Rabbi Finkel's bathroom blessing that turned him around. One of the seminaries where I used to teach, I don't teach there anymore, but I taught a course on tefillah, on prayer. And the first class of the year was Moda'ani, a prayer Jew says upon arising in the morning. And I asked my students, honestly and truly, what are you thinking when we say Moda'ani? Moda'ani, live. But if you can arise in the morning, I'm grateful I'm alive. To jump up in the, well, this could be distracting to a roommate, to quietly get up, I'm grateful I'm alive another day. This is a great way to start the day. And I urge you, don't trust me, try it. That's not the way to start the day. I just want to tell you one more story and then I'll let everybody exhale. Every Friday night, when I'm home, I mean, I travel a lot. And my last gig actually in America was in Atlanta. A year ago in March, I spoke for your esteemed colleague and everybody's favorite funny rabbi, Rabbi Benjamin Friedman. That was a year ago in March. It was the last gig I had in America. And since then, my wings have been clipped. So, but anyways, usually I travel a lot. I always say I'm a firm believer in Shalom Bayit. Goodbye, goodbye to the house. So, but anyways, when I'm home, we always say Ges Makoto. Again, in the pandemic, that's not happening. We always say Ges Makoto, we call them walnuts. And one Friday night, many years ago, we brought home a girl off the wall, brought her for a meal. She stayed a little bit longer, true story. Anyways, after 5 weeks, I said to her, maybe you'd like to go into the Yerushalayim, good seminary, intriguing classes. She said, no, I like it where I am. I said, nonetheless, and I personally took her by taxi to Neve. Now, the end of the story is today, this woman is married, religious woman, has a couple of kids. She later confessed to me, her very first day in Neve Yerushalayim, she walked into the dining room, so everyone talking to the food before they ate it. She said, they're really spaced out. She said, but now I'm lost without a blessing. This is where I hang my hat of appreciation. There's an Uncle Moshe song. And tell you the truth, if I hear it one more time, my kids went too far with this, but it goes like this. Baruch Hashem, for the sky so blue, for whatever you do, I'm a happy Jew. Cha, 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 cha. So it's awfully corny, but it's awfully true. If you appreciate your happy person, that's the most important thing. So if this Rosh Chodesh Adar, and we need a little joy, 10 times have been rough to just as difficult as it is, we're happy. We should be happy people because Most of us have not experienced terrible situations. We're better off than most people in the world. Nay, we're better off than 90% of the people in the history of this planet. Instead of thinking all the time what they have, we have to think about the blessings that we're endowed with. That's the short of it.
Great. So first of all, thank you for the message, and thank you for the focus on and a real practical way of absorbing and practicing and becoming simcha. Let me just counterpunch for a minute and get your reaction to this. We are all blessed. And most of the people I know are blessed beyond words, and not only in comparison to others now, but in comparison to others in human history. Unbelievable. And yet, I'm a rabbi and I deal with people in all kinds of events, and almost everybody I know has suffered painful loss or tremendous worry or illness or chronic illness, dealing with all kinds of things. How is that person supposed to be besimcha when actually they're dealing with something that is quite acute? And you can't get through this life without actually suffering terrible loss. There is no way not to experience loss.
Okay, so I'll tell you what I learned in the driver's ed in Israel. I'm translating from Hebrew. In Israel, if you have driving offenses, you must take a course in driver's ed. Not that I would know, but I just happened to have been in the room when they were teaching this. And the expression is, which translates as, you can be dead right. What does that mean, dead right? The light turns green and you have the right to go, and a car is approaching. Now, you may exercise your right, but if you do, you will be dead right. R.I.P. Here lies a man that was dead right. R.I.P. OBM. So everybody has the right to complain, but they do not have to exercise that right. Two women lose their pocketbook. One woman says, "Oy vey, my keys, my credit card, my photo, my wallet, my passport, take me months to replace it." And the other woman says, "Oy vey, my keys, my credit card, my photo, my wallet, my passport. Thank God it wasn't me." And I'm no different than anyone. I don't want to lose my wallet. But if I would, I'd allow it to ruin 3 minutes and not 3 months. We have to learn to wreck the dike in the face of adversity. Now, it's a little bit above my pay scale to give counsel to other people who are suffering, but I've been there a little bit myself, and I've tried to incorporate. That's what I'm saying to you right now. I mean, the real expert on this is that fantastic book, So Fantab, by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning.
Sure.
The best proof is Auschwitz. We lost our pride, identity, dignity, possessions, even our hair. But what they could not take away is how we reacted to life's hardness. So you may think that their life is unjustifiably hard, and it may be, but that's the decision that you have to make. As he put it, the Nazi was liberated, or the Nazi was free, but that's between our ears. If we could be liberated, we could be behind barbed wire and be freer or more liberated than the Nazi, who was a free man. That's up here. And it's very interesting that all these people who talk self-help, the gurus, Stephen Covey, Anthony Robbins, and there's much more. Their whole Torah is based on Stephen. They say that, but people don't pay attention. It's based on Viktor Frankl.
Frankl, yeah. Powerful.
I don't know if you know this, that I'm a senior tour guide in Yad Vashem, a senior docent. And I always tell the story when we get to this, idea of resistance. And I tell the story of my Menayel in Stanford's mother, Rebbetzin Meyer, exceedingly pious woman. And she was in a labor camp in Austria, highly expecting. And she davened every day that it shouldn't be a boy. For it be a boy, she'd have the problem of arranging a bris. Now, I can assure you, most people in camp's not worried about making a circumcision, but this and only this was on her mind. And the woman had such incredible faith. She took the slop that was fed to her, buried it into the ground. So in fact, to be a boy, perhaps she could manufacture, cook, produce something out of it and serve that Sudat mitzvah on the day of the bris. God played a little trick, and a baby boy was born. And then, miracle of miracles, on the 8th day, a transport arrived in the camp, and on the transport was the male, the circumciser from her village in Hungary. She was ecstatically happy, said, "Must be brought your male mess or your knife for circumcision?" But he had not. How could you, she said, no, she said, "Must be you made a mistake." But how could you make a mistake when you're only allowed to take such few meager possessions with such an important rebbetzin or honor? He looked, and sure enough, he had made an error. He brought the knife for circumcision, performed the bris, and she held up a little baby, Menashe, don't cry. I've denied you a proper circumcision, but with God's help, I'll yet provide a proper bar mitzvah. And 13 years later in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, there's more drinks and schnapps that fill lakes and oceans and rivers. Hasidische Williamsburg in the 1950s. In Kishkan Kugel that could fill auditoriums and plazas. And Schmalzhering, gefilte fish that could fill vats and tubs. And everyone's eating and drinking and merry. Menashlik is up, delivers bar mitzvah drashas, pshetel, the sermon. And just then this elderly gentleman walks in from the back of the room, malodorous, odorific, verstunken, redolent, but eyes that are chipped from agate. He walks right up to the front of the room in good old Williamsburg style, begins to clink on the soda bottle. Menashla, oi, my, trying to quiet down this intruder. Menashla, oi, my, menashla. One gentleman, a little more enterprising than the others, passed him a bottle of schnapps. He couldn't be decided. He said, ladies and gentlemen, you think you're here to attend a bar mitzvah, but you're mistaken. In fact, you're here to attend a bris. At this point, the hook is out. They want to hear the end of the story. Ladies and gentlemen, 13 years ago, we were deep in hell, denied and deprived, beaten and tortured every day. It was your mother who reminded us who we are, and indeed who we should be. And you think what you're eating now is tasty, I want you to know that little something your mother served at your Sudas mitzvah, at your circumcision was more heavenly than paradise itself. If she can maintain that there, look where she was, and she maintained that there. How about us where we are? And I can't belittle our hardships, but it gives a perspective. There's some people who go off the deep end with Holocaust, but I think what I gained from it, my knowledge in it, is that it gives me a perspective. People see snow, they go crazy, and I think to myself, I'm not walking outside, freezing without shoes. It's just a sobering reaction. I have a very interesting PS. It's that story I just told you. 9 years ago, my son was married in Williamsburg, in Brooklyn. If anybody here is from New York, Williamsburg has become the wedding capital of New York. And I'm about to, this story I told you, I wrote in one of my books. This is the second time in one Zoom session. One Zoom Gali, I have 2 self-plagiarisms. In any event, to make a long story long, I'm literally about to walk my son down to the chuppah, to the marriage canopy. And a Hasidic Yid comes over to me with all the trappings, langa rekel, bulletproof stockings, a hat large enough to be a shaila of ohel and Shabbat, and salt and pepper, salt. And he says to me in Yiddish 3 words, had I not held on to the rail, surely I would have fainted. He said to me, Ich bin Menashela. He's the baby I wrote about. Then he walked out of my life. This woman did such resistance. She didn't let herself be held down. And she really, really suffered. And she raised a family of tzaddikim, righteous, pious individuals. I think that message of you can be dead right, but you can reason to complain, but you do not have to exercise that right, even though you have that right.
Got it. Fantastic. Thank you. It's really very powerful. I appreciate it. So let me ask you this one. I don't think anybody's ever going to ask you. In what way is the message that you just gave us related to anything you've done or plan to do on your podcast?
Okay, so the fact of the matter is that my podcast, it's called Teller from Jerusalem. It's so Teller-esque. Everything has a story, and there's a lot of humor, and hopefully I would like to think that it's witty. And so there's nothing that I have that I don't somehow get into it. The second one is dropping today, but I've already recorded 13 or 14 episodes. So this will come up. All of my things it's all there. And especially the ones once a month we have on character. So I try and connect the history to the way we conduct ourselves. And these people that I don't think, I've had a yeshiva education all my life. And I think we've done short shrift. The people who built the state of Israel, they were not necessarily pious, righteous saints, but the sacrifice that they did, and we're really getting the benefit from them. And it's high time to recognize.
Well, it's wonderful, and we can actually have a sense of appreciation, even if we may not just disagree, but recognize that they were not necessarily fulfilled as observant and religious and devoted servants of God, but they were definitely servants of the Jewish people. And
to take the most controversial topic of all, when I started, like I said, I'm preparing a lot. So when I started reading about Herzl, and I want to tell you, when I was a young bacher in Israel, instead of doing like people during their vacation, they go on trips, I wanted to help out, and I went to teach, and I went to Kiryat Shmona, and the rabbi let me stay in his house, and his house is Rehov Asim B'Tesha Herzl. My friends in yeshiva wrote me letters in those days people wrote letters. You know, Chanoch Teller Rechov, it's invitation Herzl Yamach Shemo. You know, that's on the address they put. People, I was so surprised about what this man had done. So I went to Rabbi Breidowitz, Yitzhak Breidowitz, and he told me, "You're absolutely right. They don't have it. They don't have it right. My whole life, you know, they lied to me. They didn't tell the whole story."
Amazing. Well, we wish you a bunch of tzlacha with the podcast. Thank you for making the time today. And before you sign off, I just need to ask my wife. You mentioned Yael and Michal before from Atlanta.
Yes, right.
Yael and Michal. Who did Rabbi tell us?
Sisters.
Lavette?
Yes.
Of course. Okay. See, I need the whole name.
No, I'm saying I wanted you to know we can't compete with that. We can't compete with these girls. Tamar Stein, Ari Wolf, the Lavette girls. We can't compete.
Yeah, well, that's
Brooklyn to shame, Queens to shame, Chicago to shame, Los Angeles to shame.
they're all wonderful, and they do represent Atlanta very, very well. And thank you for mentioning them. It's really appreciated. Thanks for
And
your
we have
time.
this year also. We have more girls from Atlanta. Yeah,
Yeah, thank God we got it. We have a group going every year. Believe that. Amir Hashem, K'nai Hara. All right.
Thank you very much. Shabbat Shalom, Chodesh Tov.
Chodesh Tov. Thank you very much for your time, for being part of this series.
My pleasure.
Shabbat Shalom. Bye.
Okay, shalom.
You didn't record that last week, did you?
Wow. Unbelievable. That was gorgeous.
All right, everybody, that was wonderful. Thank you so much for joining. Good Erev Shabbos. Happy Rosh Chodesh Adar. And we will see you again next week, if not sooner.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.